Today, since Madeleine McCann went missing on holiday in Portugal with her parents. We'll reflect on that after 1:30. First, though, Will Guyatt joins me, LBC's technology reporter, to hopefully explain a bit better than I ever could exactly how this kind of tracking of people's online activity for political campaign purposes really works. Hello, Will.
Hey, Sheila. Good to talk to you.
You too.
This is a really interesting area of the internet, and I won't get too technical because that often puts people off when we talk about these things. But it's very clear that society as a whole, we're not really aware of what the big internet companies are doing. And you can look at this in a number of ways. For Facebook, there's big money to be made out of this election. So the Conservatives spent about £1.2 million on digital campaigning in the last election. Labour only spent £160,000. Now, if I believe what I'm reading in the newspapers today, Labour are already committing to spending up to £1 million on digital adverts and targeted digital campaigning. Now, so you've got the political parties able to target you based on your interests, but there's a lot more behind this. There's if you're somebody using the internet, these internet companies know a lot more about you than you'd like to think. So I don't think I've ever told Facebook a lot of this, but I searched today on Facebook about what it knows about me. It says I love KFC, the chicken place. I've never said that to Facebook. That's actually accurate. I have an iPhone 7 Plus. I listen to LBC, and I live in Bristol. Now, those are bits of information I've never actually directly told Facebook. So this is information that they've got from posts I've made, things I've interacted with in and off of Facebook, and the same with Google. Google tells a very accurate picture of me as a human being, my age, the kind of things I'm interested in, and what I'm likely to interact with. And anybody can find this information about themselves. You can use, for Facebook, you can do that by looking at an advert and clicking above the advert, and it gives you information about how that advert's been targeted to you. And on Google, you can just do it through something like myaccount.google.com. But this leads to a very interesting thing. Should we be targeted? Should companies and organizations be able to target us based on our interests? I don't know how acceptable I feel that is.
And as well as the individual targeting, so the targeting of an individual who lives in Bristol, likes KFC, listens to LBC, and I guess political parties then make judgments about that individual. As well as that, there are concerns over the targeting of particular constituencies. So if there is expected to be a large turnout amongst the female vote, let's just choose off the top of our head groups of voters, a large turnout of the female vote, but a particular party knows that it really needs that vote, then it, using Facebook, targets them and ignores the rest of the constituents in that particular part of the country. Is that the kind of thing that's going on as well? So it encourages the vote that it needs.
And 2 years ago, in the last election, I was actually working for Facebook, and one of the things I worked on was the election. And a lot of those conversations were persuading or talking to potential members of Parliament about how to use social media, because you'd be amazed at the lack of knowledge that those people and those constituencies, those representatives had in the last election. So a lot of it is about education, but increasingly Facebook will be talking about those campaigns and making that information available to the people involved in these digital campaigns. And Facebook themselves have been very coy about the company's ability to influence elections. They've been very, they simply wouldn't go on record to say that kind of thing. But what I would say is, with Facebook advertising and the way you can target posts to people with a particular interest, if you spent enough money, Sheila, you would be able to affect somebody's view on a story, or you can affect the visibility of content on Facebook based on the amount of money that you spend, because that's how Facebook's making its money through advertising. That could be used to show you all of those chicken adverts, or it could be used to show you a vote for an MP.
And is it, in your view, Will, any different from the kind of assessment of political opinion that the parties have made since time began, I suppose, since politics began, the whole white van man, Wiltshire woman assessment of people's habits and preferences? Is it different to that?
I think it's the modern equivalent of that. It's a lot more direct, though, Sheila, because people spend, some people spend several hours of their day looking at their phone, interacting through something like Facebook. And whilst people always tell me that they've never bought anything via adverts on Facebook, you'd be amazed at the influence that an advert that you see continuously on something like Facebook will actually have on you and may alter your conversation. And I think that's what we need to consider more than anything else here, is the ability of an organization like Facebook to alter opinion. Google, for example, don't do this at the moment, but it would be quite easy for an organization like Google to filter what we see on the internet based on our preferences. And that means that we're only then seeing the stuff that we think we would, we are only seeing the things that they think we would like to see. So you stop losing this whole political discourse.
So there's no challenge in that, is there? Nobody's views are ever challenged in that.
No, and that's the thing. But
again, is that any different to somebody who will only read the Sun newspaper?
That's a really interesting question, and I hadn't considered it in quite that way.
But in a sense, that's their choice, isn't it? There are lots of newspapers in front of them; they just choose this one. But with Google, you're talking about them only putting that one thing in front of you.
Yeah, but Sheila, I think people don't realise that social media, the Facebooks and the Twitter of the world, are making really clever assumptions on what you want to see, and that means you end up in this echo chamber that we continually talk about. So you're only seeing stuff related to your interests. So therefore, you don't see the wider world. And that's why so many people that voted Remain were absolutely flabbergasted when we voted for Brexit, because they thought it wasn't possible based on the information they were seeing on their social networks. And I think companies like Facebook and other organizations are going to have to get a little bit more responsible about how they're handling these kind of important events like elections and other things where they really can shape opinion. I think we're going to see them having to take greater control and greater responsibility.
Well, evidence suggests that they won't, because they don't on things like, even the skimpiest of protections for children has been hard won. But is it about them taking responsibility, or is it about them, particularly perhaps during election campaigns, being forced by law to take responsibility? So from today, I broadcast in a different way. I make different choices on air because there is an election campaign, and I have to be absolutely assiduous about fairness towards parties appropriate to the size and support that party has and all the rest of it. They don't.
No, and at the moment, I believe there is no restriction on how much money is spent on a constituency.
There isn't. No, and on digital advertising you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. So there are these rules that currently do not apply. But one thought I'd like to leave you with, there's this fantastic website, Sheila, called Trackography. And if you go to trackography.org, you can see who's looking at your information when you're on any website. And that's an incredible insight into the number of people trying to get information about you on the internet at any one time. It doesn't impact. I don't think I want to ever change the way I use the internet, but I want to be more aware about how my information is being used. And I think that's something we need to do as a society.
Well, here's an example of how information is used, and it's an example given by the chief executive or the British chief executive of Cambridge Analytica, a digital company that described its psychographic techniques, as they call them. Alexander Nix said it gathers voters' data, social media data, and ranks them. So it looks at how you or I might operate online and decides how open we are, how conscientious we are, how extrovert or introvert we are, our agreeableness to others, including whether we give to charity, for example, and put other people's needs ahead of ourselves, how neurotic we might be. And then political parties shape the message they send you based entirely on your psychographic reading. Now that, I think, is a bit sinister.
But that is not illegal at the moment, and this is the challenge here, is that with the you think about something like Facebook, where you've got billions of posts a day. You put enough of that information and data through sophisticated analysis, you can make a fairly clear picture of people, even if it's anonymized. But the issue we currently have here is that we as society, or the organizations that are supposed to protect us, governmental watchdogs, all of those kind of people, are not fully across the techniques that are being used to make these assessments and assumptions about us as people. And I think this is where the challenge comes. And you hear all these terrible stories, like, for example, we've got this story, there's a story at the moment about Facebook seemingly looking at vulnerable, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and were they targeting them with information? And these companies have a lot of information. They have a lot of talented people in these companies. And what happens in these situations is people start looking at what they can do with the data without being constrained by morals or any of the other issues. And this is where we are reaching. You'll probably in 5 to 10 years' time, Sheila, the health insurance quote you get will be based on whether you ordered a pizza to your home, how many times you've walked around because your phone has tracked the number of steps you've made, and whether you've reported medical issues to the hospital. And this is, unless somebody takes control of this, that's the level of data they can get about us.
Oh, it's time to get one of those old Nokias again, isn't it? Not to advertise for Nokia.
There. I have the best
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Will. Always good to talk to you. Will Guyatt, LBC's technology reporter. Well, the Electoral Commission says they're looking closely at advertising spending on digital ads, but my guess is that they can't